I've tried to get into Hanjuku Hero before, but always bounced off of it. Get it? Because your guys bounce off the guys they're fighting? Well, never mind, you'll see. I was hoping to finally get it to click this time. Hanjuku Hero is a pretty popular Famicom game. And it's one of those games that keeps spawning sequels even though they don't come out very regularly. There's a lot of fondness for the series in Japan. So I started playing, and I instantly failed. And again. And again. And I kept getting the game over screen where your troops initially seem like they're mourning you, but then it turns into a party because you're dead. I was really wondering what I was doing wrong. I was playing the easiest scenario, I had read up on how you're supposed to do the combat, and I was attacking the only convenient target. Well, turns out I wasn't doing anything wrong. Hanjuku Hero just has an amazingly steep curve at the very start. And either everything will align and you can actually get things going, or you'll just get a game over. Let's zip back a little bit here. Hanjuku Hero is a real-time strategy game. It is not an RPG, not even remotely. There's no character progression. Your attack power at the start is your attack power at the end of the scenario. There are 3 scenarios in the game that are supposed to go easy, medium, and hard, though I found the second scenario to be the easier one to get started with. All 3 scenarios cast you as the prince of a declining kingdom that's been reduced to just one castle. And your goal is to go out and take over all of the other kingdoms. You start with 3 units, 2 generals, and your hero, and if you lose your hero, it's an immediate game over. It's virtually impossible to get additional generals, and you will not get generals that are as good as the ones that you start with. So even losing either of the other 2 is a major blow. Generals only have 2 stats, attack power and management. Management affects how expensive it is for them to upgrade a castle, and that's it. They also have their own hit points, and can have an army with them. The army is always 4 soldiers maximum. The interface is extremely easy. You hit the A button to select someone, and hit the A button to select a command. Which 99% of the time your options are go, or look at the status. When you order your units to move, they go in a straight line to the point that you select. They can swim and climb over mountains. The terrain just affects their movement speed. That means that you do need to micromanage people to get them around tricky terrain though. And if 2 heroes collide, it goes to a menu where they can trade some items around. That screen is actually a little bit annoying when you're trying to maneuver people. You're the red forces and your enemy are the blue forces. I actually found that a bit confusing to start with, given how in most games the enemy are red and you're blue. If your forces stop moving and they're not in a castle, then they become this little house for some reason. If you collide with an enemy in the field or enter a castle where there's an enemy, then you go to this battle screen. Here you hit the A button as hard as you can to make your guys fight faster, and your army is basically acting as a screen for your general. You need to knock all of them away, and then you can attack the general directly. The hit points at the bottom are for the general, not the troops. Mashing A reduces the stamina bar, and if it runs out, you're no longer having an effect on the battle, but I really didn't notice any difference. Even if the other enemy seems weak, if they clear your troops out first, you're probably going to die. You can hit the B button to pause the action and bring up a menu. The first option is to use items that you've purchased. The second option is for eggs, which we'll get to. And then there's run away. And when you run away, there's still a pretty good chance that you'll lose a troop. And if all of the troops are dead, that means your general's going to die. Winning the battle gets you, well, nothing really unless it's in a castle. That means fighting enemies out in the field generally isn't worth it. In a castle, if you've completely cleared it of all armies, and there can be multiple armies there, then it belongs to you. You don't automatically replenish troops that you lose after a battle. You have to return to a castle that you control, and you have to have enough soldiers to replace the ones that you've lost. After about 3 minutes of actual time has passed on the game map, the music comes to an end, and the month is over. Then a special event will occur, and I'm told that there are good events that happen, but I haven't seen them. These events are the only way that you can get additional generals, and they read off their stats and then play a shell game with you. A shell game that cheats, by the way. It changes who's in front and who's behind without any visual sign of it. Then you get income from every castle you control, and the amount of income you get is dependent upon what level of castle they are. So on this menu, you can purchase one-time special use weapons for battle from a merchant. You can replenish your troops at the cost of 1 troop per gold. This is very important, and you should keep this at maximum. Upgrading your castle requires that you have a general there, and it costs 20 gold minus the management skill of the general. Higher level castles can hold more soldiers and give you more income. Conquering a castle sets its level back to 1, so even if it looks pretty big when you take it over, you're still going to have to build it up again. When you're done, select Continue, and the battle picks up right where you left off. I've covered the core gameplay, but on every map there's also castles that are controlled by monsters. You can't ever gain control of those castles, but if you go there and beat the monsters living in them, they'll give you an egg. You use the eggs in battle, and then this... Oh no. Yeah, Square, don't do that. Okay, once they're done doing a racism, the egg summons a monster, and then you get a more RPG-ish style battle. The enemy forces get to attack the monster, and the monster has 2 different attacks. Some of those attacks have special abilities, like this guy can cut enemy HP in half. There are different levels of eggs. At the top level you might get something like Hades, who destroys whatever army you're facing in one shot. And every time you hatch that egg, it gets 1 level weaker. If the enemy forces manage to defeat your egg, then it's done for good. Different generals have different monsters that they're associated with, so your characters can have a pretty wide variety of creatures come out. I am very confident that the AI in this game cheats. It doesn't seem to obey troop limitations, so you can't take over castles via attrition, wearing down the enemy forces gradually with multiple waves of attacks. And the enemy castles sometimes just spawn a general. Their weaker forces also seem to perform better than you in a general sense. A mid-tier enemy general, for example, is about equal to your top generals. In the easy scenario, the AI starts with one of their stronger generals in the castle right next to you. So without some kind of edge, it's basically raw luck on whether or not you're going to beat them. For that reason, I'd recommend heading north at the start instead with 2 of your forces. Have them pick up some monster eggs, return to the castle to replenish the troops, and then start attacking. Once I had that basic strategy down, I started making some really good progress. I thought Hanjuku Hero was a pretty interesting game. You do have to do a lot of micromanagement of your troops, and that combat system can be pretty swingy. But getting a giant monster to attack the other army was pretty fun. It also doesn't seem to be too difficult once you get past that initial hurdle. Even when I got 4 months in a row with a bad event that gave me a major setback, once that snowball was rolling, I kept rolling. I feel like there's just enough here with Hanjuku Hero that it doesn't get bogged down. I mean, for some of the other strategy games we've seen, I have no hope of describing all of the systems and strategy in a single video. But I've given you everything you need to know to play Hanjuku Hero. In fact, I saved my game so that I'd be able to pick it up where I left off. I'm glad I finally managed to get into this one.